Well, great day, everyone, and welcome to Spirit and Mind, where we discuss current affairs with faith and mental health perspective. I am Bishop Guy Robinson, and it is a blessing to be able to share with you today, and a blessing to have my colleague, Dr. Shepherd, with us. Good day, Dr. Shepherd.
Yes, good day, Bishop Robinson. And how are you, sir?
Doing very well, no complaints. And how was everything for you this week?
Everything's been good. Everything's been fast paced. Had to make some travels this weekend to support one of families that is near and dear to me. But I tell you, the Lord has been good, and I'm just thankful for being alive and thankful to be here on another broadcast with Spirit in Mind. So grateful to see those who are coming on in. So please come on in the room. It is 7, and please share with your friends. Hit them up, social media, tag them, or whatever you need to do. Like, share, and thank you, Juanita Henderson and Stacy Bynum, for being with us already. And we're going to look more for people to come.
Yes. We love this time that we get to share via Spirit in Mind, and grateful for you being with us. And again, we're being blessed by the connections that continue, and so we just want to keep that going. It's always a blessing answer emails and various questions, and to address various topics that are posed to us by way of email. Sometimes after we discuss what we discuss, things kick in. Some of us, process the information and, come up with questions later on. And so that's why we appreciate staying connected, even beyond this formal Spirit and Mind time. And so Dr. Shepherd always is so gracious to share with us ways we can stay connected. And so, Dr. Shepherd, would you do that again and tell the people how they can stay connected?
Yeah, so please stay connected. I feel like that song "Stay Connected" should pop on.
Yeah.
That's a song that used to be quite popular back in the day. You can stay connected to me through my various methods or platforms: email, office, Facebook, YouTube channel. Go there, subscribe. That way, you'll never miss when Spirit of Mind comes on. Hit me up on Instagram. My website is there, and I'm thankful for those who connect via various ways to ask questions, to give insight, or to ask for opportunities to share more insight at your place of employment or business or even faith organization. So please continue to do that. And then Bishop C. Guy Robinson, please reach out to him. There's his email, his office number, also on his social media platforms. Please subscribe to CGR Ministries. And Bishop is also the pastor Tabernacle of the Lord, Full Gospel Baptist Church. So you want to make sure that you even tag in and go listen. I was told that I need to go back and listen to the sermon for today. So you always want to keep a little bit of time during the day to go back and replay. And I want to acknowledge all those who go back and watch Spirit of Mind. Bishop, I'm told that people, when we have to take our sabbatical, which is proper, that people will go back and watch previous episodes so they can stay connected to us. And the information doesn't change. So that's why we're excited about some new platforms that will be coming, because this information is so needed and is needed across really the globe. And so please, those who are watching the replay, we acknowledge you. We're thankful for you. And those are the different ways you can stay connected to us. We look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, indeed we do. And we're excited about, as Dr. Shepherd referenced, some additional ways of staying connected that we're working on. And so keep us in prayer as we continue to pursue and to plan, which is what we're going to be talking about still in a little bit. But as we plan and pursue what we believe to be a part of divine purpose. And so we're excited about that. We appreciate the power of connection. Listen, If you haven't had the chance already to do so, I love the opportunity and again the privilege of being connected. And feel free to share. I just did one of my new mental health ministry minutes. Based on several different reports. Really, if you put them together, it's longitudinal reports from 1999 to as recently as 2020 that show how consistent participation in faith community increases life expectancy. With the coping skills that it gives, and some of the reasons that are reported for that increased life expectancy. That's how long we can expect to live. Not talking about lifespan for the technical person, but life expectancy based on certain biopsychosocial factors and decision making and behavioral patterns. And so, faith community, regular participation increases life expectancy from the various studies from 4 years to as many as 14 years. And for African Americans and people of color, it is on the higher end towards the 14-year additional life expectancy. There's something about that consistent participation. And so please feel free to share things like that we drop. We don't have time to cite all. I did do a little bit of APA notations on this last mental health ministry minute, as much as the format would allow, but just trying to make the point that this is evidence-based research that is showing these factors. And so things like that we want to share, just as we've taken on our mission to engage with a ministerial perspective to mental health awareness and advocacy as part of a holistic plan of biopsychosocial care. And so please feel free. That's what we get to do when we stay connected. And so I'm grateful for that. Share that with someone so someone gets into somebody's church and stays connected and finds divine purpose and destiny. So that's the power of connection. So I'm looking forward to staying connected. Dr. Shepard, we talked about for the last couple of weeks, it's the beginning of the year, and still the first quarter, even though we're in the second month now, we're still in the first quarter of the year, and still an appropriate time when people maybe have a natural acquiescence towards planning and even formally or informally talking about expectations for this year, and maybe even consciously or unconsciously living with those expectations. And so we've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. And Dr. Shepard, you want to do the recap and bring us up to where we need to be, and then we'll see how we go from there.
All right. Yes, I'll do as quick of a recap as possible. Only maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes here. We can throw up the slide, Minister Cat, from last week with the outline. We've been talking about goal setting and what the things that we do to prepare for goal setting. And we gave you various different steps to make sure that you are in line with those principles of effective goal setting. And so here they are once again for a brief recap, brief refresher, and pray without ceasing, aligning your goals with God's purpose. And under that particular heading, we had some subcategories of where we talked about clarity, challenge, commitment, feedback, and task complexity. And then we talked about how it's necessary to form, nurture, accountability relationships. And these are things that we are looking for everyone to do if you're looking for effective goal setting. Again, that looks different for all of us, absolutely. But this is a framework, if you would. This is a template of how to move forward. So many people ask, Shepard, how are you able to get done what you're able to get done in such little time? Or you're only one person. How are you able to still do this? Well, number one is not me. All right. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, I'm sure, as we go into some of these questions. that come out of it. Because what happened at the end of our last broadcast is that we started talking about what happens when you have done the various steps. You pray without ceasing, you align with God's purpose, and you form those nurturing relationships, and you have those other subcategories, and yet and still your goal is not met. You're still frustrated about what's happening in your life. You're even mad at yourself. You're mad at God. And so that's where we're going to dive in a little bit deeper today. I just set the framework. So now we're going to get into this, because I can hear someone saying, Shepherd, I've done all those things. I've done those things repeatedly, and yet I'm still on hold. Yet it feels as if I am, some folks, going backwards. So we want to talk about that. We want to encourage you. We want to talk about some ways in which we can help you in accomplishing those goals. So, Bishop, that is where we left off, and I believe this is where we will pick up.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Shepherd. And I'm just inclined to ask some of our Spirit of Mind family, it may be, of course, to feedback with us on that, so we know that that's just kind of affirm or confirm that you've been in that place, or know what it is, even maybe in the past, or maybe even right now, to say, why isn't this working? Why isn't my plan turning out? Listen, maybe even this year. I mean, we are technically in a new month, and so maybe you made this plan January 1st, and it's into the first week of February. You may be going, why isn't this working? So just by anybody who's bold enough to say been there, just put that in the chat line if you don't mind being so bold. You don't have to give a bunch of details, but just, or maybe put a raised hand in the emoji. I know I've been there. I'll start. If you've heard me say Proverbs 19:21 is sort of like entrenched in my mind. Many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that will prevail. Because I know I've made plans, and I know I've had plans, and I've had plans to change, and plans that I've had to adjust, plans that I've had to say, this isn't working. Oh my goodness. And so that's really the in short, that's a big part of it. The Lord's purpose prevails. And so that's a big answer, really the short answer to it. Say, man, I planned, I did all of this. Or as man, who's the English author? John Steinbeck, the American author, in Mice and Men, said both the plans of both mice and men often go awry. Things change, or as the ancient Hebrew wisdom tradition says, we plan, God laughs. And so these are all just different ways of saying, wow, yeah, been there. I made a plan. When I was 20, we talked about where I was going to be. In fact, and I'm just starting off, but I'm just, it's kind of interesting, even if you listen over the stages of our life development cycles, how our plans change. When we're kids, I'm going to be a fireman, I'm going to be an astronaut, I'm going to be, I'm going to be a police officer, I'm going to be it's like 5, 6, 7 different things. And then, as we go through life, that plan changes. By the time we become adolescents, young adults looking for identity, and then we sometimes end up doing something that makes a living, that kind of thing. And so now it's making a living. And then here come the 30s, and it's like I did what I was supposed to do. Now I'm getting nervous, and I'm gonna do what I want to do. These are all stages in a very developmental cycles of life crises. To say, wow, when I was 20, and you asked me what I was going to do when I was 35, and we consciously or unconsciously compare those. This is where I expected to be at 35. And now, wow, seemed like just yesterday I was 20 and saying this is where I'm going to be when I'm 35. And now I'm 35. And how does what I'm doing compare? How does the experience match up with the expectation? Uh, and so, yes. Somebody in the line has that that's a variation of the Hebrew wisdom tradition. There's when to tell God something funny, tell him your plans. So, we say that not to make light of it, but to just say that life presents things that change us, and in some ways, it's good to have a kind of flexibility and openness, and even perhaps some humor about it, as opposed to always being frustrated. So, let's start with this scripture. I'm just going to present some things, and we'll see where that takes us. Um, we aren't the first people to be disappointed with what we thought was going to happen, and even disappointed from a perspective of believers. In the Gospel of Luke, and this isn't sermon, we're just going to analyze the text. Y'all, many of y'all been to church already, so have I. I preach for the day, but it has. I want you to think of this as we try to do some, if you will, some kind of extraction of some significant cognitive emotional principles with theological oversight from the text. So Luke 24 and verse 17 talks about two disciples on the road to Emmaus. This is after Jesus has been crucified and he's been buried. And so Jesus comes up on them. He's resurrected. And the previous verses say that the two disciples, their eyes were restrained so they could not see him. Another gospel writer says that he was in another form. So Jesus comes up on them, and wonderful counselor that he is, he asks a motivational interview question. He says, "What kind of conversation is this that you are having with one another as you walk and are sad?" Hope there is that Jesus knows all about their emotions. He knows that they are in a down place. He knows that they're going through something. And, if you really want to be deep about it, God asks questions. He really already knows the answer. It's really to get us to introspect and confess. And it also lets us know that just because we're disciples doesn't mean that we can't have some sad days or some bad days. So being believers does not exempt us from going through emotional difficulties and struggling with the way things have turned out. So Jesus asked them, why are they sad? And they answer in verse 21 to shorten their answer. They say, we were hoping that it was he. And if you see that in the New King James, the he is capitalized, meaning the Lord. We had hoped the Lord was going to redeem Israel. And today is the third day since these things happened. So here it is. We can stop right there. He says, we had hope. We were hoping. That's already past tense. We had certain expectations of how the Lord was going to do what he said he was going to do. We had certain expectations of how life was going to turn out. So essentially, if you want to know why we're in this sad cognitive emotional state, it's because what we hoped would turn out didn't turn out the way we hoped. Our plan is not working. And it's been 3 days, which, for them, again, 3 days is significant. And I don't have time to get into all of that. But 3 days represents a complete biological process. And so by now, it's too late for anything that we hoped to turn out a particular way to turn out that particular way. And so, want to know why we're sad? Is because expectation means we were looking out for this outcome, and this experience is different from our expectation. And because of that, we're sad. I'm gonna just stop right there, Dr. Shepard and Keith. I got another point, but the first one is that because we're believers doesn't mean that we don't become susceptible to life not turning out in the ways we thought, and even going through some dark and difficult places emotionally. It doesn't our status as disciples does not automatically exempt us from experiencing things that don't turn out the way we thought, even when we thought God was going to do it. That's the tension of the text. So, Dr. Shepard, I'm gonna stop with those points before we continue. You can go, please help us out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to expound upon what you have just stated. It should be brief because I'm just recapitulating what I heard in a sermon. Both sermons I heard today. The one service that I attended in person, and then as I went back and listened to my own pastor today, and it's just amazing how the Spirit of the Lord is really across. And this is a whole different state, Bishop, where I was in Virginia, and how the Lord is just saying the same thing. And it really just impresses me. I can't think of a better word, right? It just amazes me how the Lord is just really speaking to his people about humility and about how to be able to walk with him. And how does that apply to what you're just saying? These two gentlemen, they were walking, and one of the texts for the sermon that I was in person with today was about the steps of a good man or a good woman are ordered by the Lord. That applies here with the whole goal setting, because as you are carrying out these various principles and you're abiding by them, you cannot forget that your steps have already been ordered by the Lord. Uh, for some people, that is assuring. For some people, is not assuring. I'll be honest with you. And that's even what the message was talking about. There's a faith principle here. You think about it for those two gentlemen. Their plans were that the Lord would, come back to them. They were expecting for Jesus to come back, but it was 3 days later, and they were disappointed. And so, what I'm hearing you say, Bishop, and hopefully people can apply this practically to them, that as you are walking out the various steps that God has ordained for you, has ordered for you, has already prefixed, if you would, for you, that mentally you have to keep that in mind, that there are going to be some challenges on those steps that are already prefixed for you. I know you believe it. Well, I won't even say that. I know you can even process that. But I don't think, Bishop, sometimes we really get a hold of that and really believe that, because we will waffle, we will waver, and we will start to think like, Lord, I thought my purpose was aligned with you. I've been praying, and I even got accountability partners. And then as we go up these various different steps and phases, a challenge will come, and it just knock us all the way down. Oh my God, what happened? What am I doing wrong? God, oh my God, I don't really trust you, God. It's just, I thought I was doing all this right. We're people, and I won't go too far because I want to stay right here where you are, Bishop. But we are people who cannot handle disappointments as well as we say we can. And I'm praising God because he's building me up. Now, just a point of transparency here, building me up to be able to withstand those disappointments and yet change them over into something that is working out for my good. And so I just want to challenge the people today that your steps are ordered by the Lord. Even as, and I thought about it as you were talking about, as these men were walking, they were still walking to hopefully a particular destination, and God knew where they were walking, but he had something up his sleeve that he was going to reveal to them. Because why? Even though they were disappointed, they were still walking. They were still walking on the course. They were still walking on the path. And that's what I want to tell you, is that you can have all the different principles in mind. You can be acting them out, and yet there's still going to come a booby trap or a sand trap or whatever you want to put out there that's going to snarl you. And you have to still be able to remember that your steps are ordered by the Lord. Continue to hold fast to the principles of how to be able to set those goals in play, and watch how God will help you, but can't give up. That's how I'm gonna stop right there, Bishop.
Yeah, wonderful. And I'm just gonna stay in that moment, because I don't want to do what we sometimes have to do in the restraint of a service and jump right to Sunday morning. He got up. Sometimes we miss the first and second day. The text says it's been 3 days, and we have to live in those first and second days. First day is the actual traumatic event, is fresh of Calvary. The second day, it represents a whole season when it seems as if nothing is working and it is an absolute failure. Wow. Which is what that second day represents. And we have to live in the reality of that and not skip it, and not look for quick fixes. It's a full day. From the rising of the sun to the setting of the same. Actually, in that day, the sun refused to shine. And so we have to live in that, in the fullness of that eclipse, the eclipse of our hopes, the eclipse of our dreams, the way we thought things would be. I'm not doing that to depress. I'm doing that not to be avoidant and dismissive. So we have to live in this moment that these two disciples, they are infidels, if you will. They aren't pagans. They aren't non-believers. They are disciples who were following the Lord, believing and planning for a certain outcome, and they went to great services where people were healed, delivered, the blind received their sight, and the lame started walking. They've been in miracle and deliverance services and Jesus's outdoor conferences, and they've been to the best of the moments. And surely, if those things happened, then surely this was going to happen. But this plan right now seems like it's not working, and so they're walking on the road to Emmaus. Emmaus is away from where they're supposed to meet. Jesus said to the women who met him at the tomb, said to them to preach this word, meet me in Galilee. They are on the road to Emmaus because life and plans have not gone the way they thought, and because it didn't, they're walking away from the assignment. And in that moment, they quitting because it doesn't look like it's working. So they're walking away from it. And the wonder of the text is that Jesus meets them on the road of walking away. And it's a divine interception. and so that and hopefully that's what this spirit of mind moment is for somebody who is walking away actively, walking away from your call, walking away from ministry, walking away from your assignment. And so because why it didn't turn out that way. And so now let's go to the second thing. Verse 21 says, we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. So what does Jesus do? Well, we can skip because I'm just kind of moving through it again. We've already preached, we just talking. But on verse 27. He says in Luke 24:27, and beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he, again, capital H meaning Jesus, expounded to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. Actually, at verse 26 and 25, he said to them, O foolish ones and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Ought not the Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? And beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded them all the scriptures, the things concerning himself. Here's the point. Here's the cognitive emotional development point. He says they're disciples, and they clearly have had exposure to the word, because he says, haven't you heard this before? And he opens the same scriptures that they have read before, but he gives them insight to understand that everything that is happening according to God's plan. Now, here's the big point. So that means that in order to address their sadness, he has to correct their theology. Because poor theology will create some of the sympathy and cognitive emotional distortions that we have going on are because our theology is off. And here it is. If we adjust and get a healthy theology, now I'm not talking about cases that are diagnostic and need intensive care, but I'm talking about a lot of typical stuff. If I stay with the medical analogy, not every medical condition needs an operating room and surgical procedure.
Absolutely.
Some stuff, if we just make a few lifestyle adjustments, some stuff, if we just make a few behavioral modifications, some stuff, the doctor might even say the proverbial take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning and then say you're all right. But my point, to stay with the analogy, is like not everything requires invasive surgery.
Right.
And so what I'm trying to say is that some stuff that will keep us in a good state emotionally and even cognitively in terms of how we think can be helped significantly by good, solid theology. And it raises the theological question that have we become too accustomed to a kind of name it, claim it, drive through, put your order, and God is obliged to fulfill your order in the drive-through kind of theology. And so Jesus says, actually, nothing that I'm telling you now is not already in the scriptures. It's just that your interpretation and application was not there. And because you misapplied the word, it's affecting your expectations and subsequently your cognitive emotional state. So he opens the scriptures and says, I'm going to talk to you and show you that I'm going to tweak your theology and it's going to help your psychology. So he shows them what's already in there. And by the time they finish, verse 32 says, and they said to one another, did not our heart burn while he talked with us on the road and while he opened the scriptures to us? So much so that they rose up that very hour and returned to Jerusalem and found the 11. A theological fix actually got them back on track, back in their purpose, and back in their destiny.
Wow.
That's all. So we have to be prepared. That goes back to the point we made by having accountability partners, because we need people in our lives who will help us to say, hey, bro, I know you're a believer, but right there, can we work on your theology, your concept of God? Because you kind of treat them like a magic genie. And we do live in a culture of consumerism, and sometimes we forget, that it's really all about the will.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that the Bible says God has predestined these things before the foundation of the world, according to the
Yes.
counsel of his own will, which means
Wow.
that he only consulted himself about what he was going to do, not just now, but throughout time. And so, and so when we understand that, then our assignment is to know the will of God and pray what Jesus taught us to pray. Let your will be done. And so now his will might be different from what we interpreted, which is why we have to be flexible, which is why there's so much profundity in this text. So the question is, when we plan and it doesn't seem to be working, are we willing? Some stuff just now this is the pastor side talking. Some stuff, if you really have a good accountability partner, good pastoral covering, that will open the scriptures, it can really help a lot of what's going on in our head and hearts. To a great degree. That's not excusing it. Y'all know I wrote a whole book on collaboration, but I'm just saying it starts with
Wow.
a healthy theology.
Mm-hmm. And
And
I
so maybe
concur, Bishop.
God to do something that really God had already planned out. And so now, can I adjust my plan? But what they're really sad about is they're grieving the loss of an expectation that they designed. And that's okay. You can grieve that. Just make sure you eulogize it and commit it. And and so here's the good news of the text. By the time it finishes, it says our hearts are burning. They went from heartache to heartburn.
Wow.
and so I'm not going to preach, but my point is that is so very important, so that what God has planned can live. So are your plans flexible enough to die if God tweaks our theology? If the Lord shows up and says, it was already right here, the plan's not changing because the plan was set. You just need to catch up and let go of what you gave life to. So can I tweak your theology? Can I eulogize your intentions and your plans and commit them? Can I commit them earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust? And will you trust that what I have in store for you is going to exceed your expectations? That's the hard part to absolutely sit with and live with. So I'm gonna stop right there.
Well, Bishop, I mean, you can tell Bishop has been on a 100 from this morning. This is just amazing. Wow, and I just really want some of that to settle, because that really was very full and really it's feeling. That's probably the verb. Let me just say this, and I'll just back up what we said at the very beginning. When Bishop gave the stats, we quoted about people attending religious services, attending church services. Could it be the reason why you have not received your answer is because you gave up on going back into the house of the Lord at this point in time in your life? Now, you're hearing this from the physician, you're hearing this from the doctor. There's nothing to be afraid of going back into the house of the Lord, period. I'll say it again. There's nothing to be afraid about going back into the house of the Lord, period. There has not been any recent evidence of anything that would cause someone to be more at risk of catching the coronavirus at a house of worship than at the grocery store, at Giant grocery store, or at Costco, wherever. I'm just making it plain for you. Could it be that we have not taken the time to ask God, Lord, I've done the goal setting, I've done what you've asked for me to do, but we did not actually take our plans to Him, and then actually sit under the teaching to allow us to fix our minds on what God has called for us to do. Now, I don't know if anybody out there is going to be transparent enough or honest, uh, but I will. There's been some plans I had in my mind, and I knew what I was going to do after I left the house of worship. That was nothing, anything that is, quote unquote, inappropriate or bad, but it's just I already had it in my mind. This is what I was going to do. I planned it out this way. It's going to be 1, 2, 3. I tell you, Bishop, I went to the house of the Lord with the plan in place, and the word of the Lord changed my mind. I've never been any other place. And this is the honest to God truth. I was thinking about it even today as the word was ministering to my heart and to my soul. I said, Lord, I came in a certain way, but I'm leaving out more inspired. I'm leaving out more encouraged. And yes, I'm a man of science. I'm a scientist. But let me tell you, there is nothing like the word of the Lord to come in and to change literally your thought pattern on how to be able to approach a situation. I think I told this once before, but I feel it here now is appropriate time again. I can remember my first year of undergrad at the University of Chicago. It's just so fitting that I have my sweatshirt on. And I was taking algebra at the time, college algebra. And no, it wasn't. It was calculus. My bad. Calculus. I never understood calculus and still don't really to this day understand calculus. And Bishop, I was in danger of failing calculus. They put someone in who was a student teacher. Anybody know anything about universities? They put student teachers in to teach so they can have their own places of residence at the university. That's part of what they would do as a grad student. They had to teach the undergrads. Well, let me tell you, they put the wrong one in my class because he couldn't teach. And I was in danger of failing, Bishop. And had spent the whole Sunday, next day was the final, trying to rack my brain, and nothing was clicking, Bishop. I said, let me go to church. I'll go to, this is when they still had church Sunday night. I'm kind of dating myself now. And went to church that Sunday night, sat midway in the audience. And the word of the Lord just came and began to literally like just wash my mind, began to unlock different things. And I said, Lord, I feel like my mind has opened due to me coming to the word, coming to the house of the Lord, hearing the word, hearing the praises. You know what happened, Bishop, when I went back to my dorm that Sunday night? I opened up my book and I began to do problems that I could not do earlier that day. I began to answer problems. And I was so scared, Bishop, the next day on that Monday. I was like, God, please don't let this thing have drifted away. I'll be honest. I was like, I think it was just a fluke. He moved my grade from a D to a B. And that's hard to do based off of one exam. That means that I aced that exam because I submitted my plans back to God. I thought I had figured it out. And as you see, I had not, but the Lord allowed for me to go back into the house of worship. I'm going to encourage someone today. You've been hesitant about going back into the house of worship. I don't know whose house, or I just pray it is a Bible teaching, sound doctrine word where the Holy Spirit rules and where he is in control. And so I want to encourage you. You need to get back into the house of the Lord. I know you like the convenience of online worship, but the doctor is telling you, I'm telling you that it's time to get back into the assembly of ourselves in a way in which you can hear the word of the Lord, draw from the strength that you need so you can be able to actually carry out the steps that God has ordered for you.
Thank you, Dr. Stepper. That is a powerful testimony. I agree with Sister Maxine Rush. Hey, Sister Rush, that is a powerful testimony indeed. What a powerful testimony. And I don't want to be, but I just want to stay in that moment that that again that this adjustment, they were sad, they were really going through, they were walking away because life wasn't turning out the way they thought, and the Lord wasn't doing what they thought he should do. That was their thing, and so the Lord just opened up the scriptures, and verse 30 and 31 is key. It said, now it came to pass as he sat at the table with them. Tabernacle watchers know we talking about the table and what this theology of the table. But as he sat at the table with them, that he took bread, he blessed it, he broke it, and gave it to them. Now remember, they didn't know who he was before. Then their eyes were opened and they knew him. and so that's the important thing. They said, wait a minute, this is the point at which their eyes were opened. It's a message in it. Here's the bread, it's blessed, it's broken, it's given to me. Can I do this with you? Can I do this with your will? Can it with your plans? Can broken plans be blessed? Can there be a blessing in broken plans? That this is what I thought it was going to be, but those plans in my mind, like I envisioned it, were broken, and yet it's blessed because it's the Lord who's in it, and He's changing their mind, and the eyes were open so they knew Him. Up until this moment, they were so in their grief, they didn't know Him. Too grieved to even see or hear God.
Yes.
Too much in this place of grieving what are really the plans that I made. And so what the Lord really lovingly does is really, and so many times, honestly, if we're honest with ourselves, we're having an emotional temper tantrum in various ways because we do live in a culture. That's where culture influences. I don't want to get too technical, but those theologians that may be watching, we call it the seats in life or our station in life, and our culture influences our theological interpretations. And we do live in a consumerist culture. Mm-hmm. And it is easy to slip some of that into our comprehension of God as if He is our short order cook to deliver what we ordered hot, fast, and ready. And the Lord reserves the right to say, no, that's not going to be it. And so how do we, and we may say we don't, but this is how you know. Imagine if the Lord did this. Imagine if the Lord did this. Imagine if we were at a drive-through and ordered and said, I want number 7, hold the pickles, I want mayo, and then when you got to the window, the server said, I know you ordered bacon, something, but that's really not in your best interest. You got issues and you don't need no bacon. And so I really already planned your menu. And so here it is. I gave you this. We would really, really have an issue.
Oh, absolutely.
With that server, because the job of the server is to give us whatever we want. And sometimes we misconstrue those roles with the divine. Mm. And He has a right to say, many are the plans in your heart. But can I change that? Can I break it and yet bless it at the same time? Mm. Can you live with broken plans that are nonetheless blessed? Mm. And trust that when it's all over, my heart is going to burn. I'm going to say thank you for the breaking and the blessing. Thank you for the plans you changed. Thank you for ministering to my temper tantrum for things that didn't go my way. Thank you for me. And I don't mean to be facetious with that. That's an attachment issue if you want to get technical with it. And we have different ways. Some of us blow up and others of us clam up. So, some of us become avoidant and others of us protest. And so but we all have our attachment styles, and you can tell it when we detach. And so when the Lord disconnects our plans, when he breaks them, it shows our attachment style. These two disciples walked away when they had to give, when things didn't go right. So, but the Lord ministers to them and catches them and says, listen. And by the time he's finished, they go back on track and back in their purpose with resilience, with new energy. And may the Lord do that to all of us who know what it is to wrestle with change plans and to grieve unmet expectations. May the Lord meet us and fill that gap. We talked before about pain being the distance between experience and expectation. May the Lord meet us in that gap and be the bridge so that we can get back on track and say, and my heart is burning now. He took it from heartbreak to heartburn. That's where it is.
Bishop, this has been so good. And what I want to do is kind of whet the appetite, because one of the questions that we need to deal with is not only the frustration pieces, but some of the grief that we've also been talking about today, the disappointment, frustration, grief, and disappointment. But we also have to talk about our posture as we go through our goal settings. There's not enough time for us to talk about that today. But one of the things I've also been hearing through the word of the Lord, through those mouthpieces of God, and in my own study, is our posture as we are walking through, and in particular about humility, and about how humility breeds or begets wisdom. There's a connection there between the two. Sometimes our goals are not coming to fruition, or not manifesting, or they're just not taking place because we haven't been wise. And we haven't been wise because we have not exercised or been living in humility. It's a lot of pride. And this is a little bit of what Bishop was talking about, of what is occurring within our society. Pride is an all-time high. And even for myself, when you are at a esteemed institution such as the University of Chicago, think that you got it, think that you can manage it. I should have this, I shouldn't be struggling with this. Why is it that I can't figure this out? It's disappointing. I could have easily just said, you know what, I'm going to bed, Bishop. I'm not going to church. I'm done with this. I got this. You know how some of the stuff that we do. But no, I took it to the Lord. I'm not boasting here, but I want to show you there's multiple ways, and I haven't always done that, but I want to show you what happens when you follow the way that God has designed for us to do. He gives us an option, you all. He's not going to make you do something, but he wants you to hear the instruction and for you to make the decision, for you to make the choice. And then once you make that choice, you have to be able to live with those results. Our engineer, she put in a private chat that you can ask the Lord, Lord, have your way. And when you say, Lord, have your way, some of us get disappointed because he has his way, and that's not what we really want. So when you pray, Lord, have your way, they go in. And knowing that is not really what you mean. I really have been asking God, help me, Lord, that when I'm praying, I want to be sincere in my prayers. I'm not just trying to pray something that sounds pretty or can get my soul stirred up or get other people stirred up. I've been even looking As I told you all last week, reading the book about total forgiveness, and they talk about how in the Lord's Prayer, there's a line in there that so many people say without really giving a lot of thought to it. And it's about forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And the author even proposes that that's probably one of the biggest lies that is stated in this society today, because we don't forgive our debtors. We're told, I forgive you, but I won't forget. You know, that's not total forgiveness. And again, that I want to digress too much, but that is not total forgiveness. That is not how the Lord instructed us to say, I'll forgive you, but I won't forget. That's not scriptural. That's not even biblical. All right, just want to let y'all know that. So we have to be careful that as we're asking God for what it is for Him to have full control, aligning ourselves with God's purpose, doing it God's way, that it will challenge us. I'll say this at the end, and I've been really saying this more and more as I've been getting to understand that as you walk this way with God, it takes more than your natural strength to be able to do this thing. You got to wrap your mind around this. I'm coming for your mind now, because if you think that you can walk out the steps that are before you according to the principles that we have already laid out through your natural strength, I hate to tell you today that you're wrong and you'll fail every time. Your natural strength cannot do this. You actually need supernatural strength that comes only from God through His Holy Spirit. You must ask His Holy Spirit. You must ask God, Lord, endow me each day, daily. You need to ask Him. And again, this is coming from a person who, professional, scientist, all that. But I understand that it is not of my own strength and wisdom and intellect, that if I am going to operate off of my own strength, let me tell you, I will fail each and every single time. But you need to make sure that you are asking for God's supernatural strength to be able to carry out the duties, the goals, and the plans that He has for you. And as you do that, just remember, He wants us to remain in a certain posture. And Bishop, we really got to talk more about that, because that really has been so key. And I know you have your other principles that we will continue to go through. So please, y'all need to let people know we're coming for you. We are not just setting up some principles for you all just to say, oh, this is nice and pretty. No, we're coming for you because we know that you all have got some questions, and time is of the essence. And there's some shifting that has occurred, and even I sense it in so many different ways, so many different areas, so many different things I find myself involved in. People understand that the times have changed. And with that change, there needs to be a supernatural strength that is empowering you. That's why this show, that's why this broadcast is not just something that we do for entertainment. It's because we understand that the people of God, the people who we talk to on a weekly basis, or even during the week when you email us or text us, that you all are really looking for another higher plane, a higher level of spirituality, and wanting to make sure your mind is straight, that your mind is together, so that when we come through these challenges, as you walk through, that God will be glorified. I'm done, Bishop. I said more than what I need to say, but I felt that there.
Oh, wonderful. All helpful. And we thank you for joining us on Spirit of Mind. The time just seems to fly by. But by God's grace, we will be here next week. So I hope you remember that. Today we talked about that. We wanted to add that component because most of us are people of faith. And so this piece of these two disciples who would believe God for something, and it wasn't turning out the way they thought. Jesus shows up, and that's what prayer is. And so when our prayer is really going through this and God shows up and He asks them a question, why are you sad? And they are honest with Him. And Dr. Shepard touched on that. They didn't just give churchy stuff. They said, we had hoped that he was going to redeem us, that he was going to bring us out. We had hoped that he was going to let my loved one live longer than they did. We prayed. We had hope that by this time we would have the money. And so whatever, you can fill that in. Whatever died that you thought was going to live. He says, we had hoped that it was going to turn out different. And we got to be honest with that. Psalm 51 says he desires truth in the inward parts. Which means, so from within, I got to be honest with myself and thinking about what I'm saying, which means, Lord, for real, this is what I want. But nevertheless, not thy will, but to end up at that place. And so that's why we went through this part of, as we plan, how to be flexible and open to the portions of the will of God that have not been revealed to us. I don't care how spiritual we are, and that has its place. And certainly, I believe in all of the gifts of the apostle, the prophet, the evangelist, the pastor, and the teacher. But there are some things that even the prophet says the Lord has hidden from me. We know in part, we prophesy in part. And so there's a part of us that has to be flexible and open to the part and the will of God that is still unfolding in our lives, so that we can be open enough to allow the Lord to show up like he did in this text, tweak our theological position, and as a result, shift our emotional state even and our concept of God. So don't give up because it's not going your way, because the truth of the text is he is the Redeemer. They said we had hoped he was going to redeem. He is the Redeemer, and he has redeemed. He's just not doing it the way you thought it was going to work. So God will do what he said he will do, even if it's different from the way we planned for him to do it, because in the end, he's sovereign. All right. Thank you for being here. We hope that this has been encouraging. And next week, we'll continue, as the Lord gives us grace, to talk about planning and working together with the will and in submission to the will of God. So listen, thank you for joining us. And we want to see you next time on Spirit in Mind.